Hey everyone, it's Caitlin and welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to be showing you two different vegan dessert recipes that are perfect for spring. Now, whether or not it's actually spring and you're watching this video, you can still make these recipes, just as a disclaimer. When I think of spring desserts, I typically think of desserts that are more on the lighter side, so they're not necessarily super indulgent and like laced with chocolate, though there's always room in my diet for those kind of desserts. But I like to think of desserts that are, a little lighter, maybe easier to make, maybe highlight some seasonal produce, things like that. So the recipes that I'm going to be sharing with you today reflect that. First, I'm going to show you how to make a no-bake toasted coconut cheesecake. This recipe is really easy to make, and it's also just like, it looks really nice, but you don't have to put a lot of effort into making it, which I really appreciate. And then also we're going to make a vegan twist on a classic strawberry shortcake recipe. The shortcake recipe is also from my friend Rachel's new cookbook, Bakerita. I'll talk more about this at the end of the video, but I just wanted to give her a little bit of a shout out here. And now let's get into the recipes. First up, we're going to be making our toasted coconut cheesecake. And one of the ingredients in that is toasted coconut butter. So I'm going to show you how you can make that on your own from home. All you're going to need is some unsweetened shredded coconut. The flakes don't work because they don't toast as evenly, so I prefer to use these fine shreds like you can see here. You're going to add these to a nonstick pan over about medium heat, and then you're just going to use a spatula to toast them pretty frequently. As you can see, the coconut is starting to turn more of a yellow color, and certain pieces will continue to brown more than others. So you just want to keep everything moving so nothing starts to burn, and we're aiming to toast everything as evenly as possible here. So once everything is this deep brown goldenish color, you want to remove the pan from the heat and take the coconut out of the pan as fast as possible so it doesn't continue to cook or burn. So for us, we're just going to transfer that straight to a food processor. And the coconut is also nice and warm now, so when we start to blend it, it's going to liquefy faster. So you're just going to blend this, and at first some of it might stick to the side, so you're just going to use a spatula to scrape that down as necessary. This first part of coconut butter making takes the longest, probably about between 2 and 5 minutes. So we're just going to continue to whiz everything up in our food processor and then use a spatula to scrape the sides down. I would definitely recommend doing this in a food processor over a blender, just because the blender doesn't blend everything as evenly as the food processor, and it's a lot harder to scrape the sides. So like I said, you're just going to keep blending, and then eventually the oils are going to start to separate, and as you can see here, it starts to get a little bit more shiny and glossy. So you can do one final scrape of the sides, but it shouldn't need too much scraping after that. But we are going to keep blending because we want this to be very close to a liquid. So I blended it a little more. As you can see, it's kind of liquidy, but there are still some chunks in it. So we're going to blend it one more time for about a minute, and then we get that texture we're looking for. There's still going to be some slight grit, but as you can see here, when I run my spatula through it, it is pretty dang close to a liquid. This will harden as it cools. So just for ease of access, you probably want to make your cheesecake as quickly as possible so it doesn't harden up too much. So for our cheesecake, we're going to start out by adding some quick cooking oats to a food processor. You can just quickly wipe that one we just used out. And then once it forms a fine-ish flour, we're going to add in some soaked medjool dates and some of that coconut butter and a little pinch of salt. And then we're just going to cover that up and blend it all up until the dates are finely processed. And the mixture should look something like this. So it might look a little dry, but when you pinch it together with your hands, it should form a dough. So now we're going to put this into our pan. You are going to need a springform pan for this recipe. You can use another lined baking dish, but the cheesecake isn't going to pop out as evenly. So you're going to place your crust into your dish and then just use your hands to flatten it down very, very firmly and evenly. And then once everything is nice and evenly packed, we're just going to set this aside while we work on the filling for our cheesecake. So we're actually going to be using firm tofu in this recipe, plus some orange juice, some maple syrup, some orange zest, some vanilla extract, and then a pinch of salt again. We're going to start out with this and then blend this together. And then once it forms a smooth and creamy liquid, then we're going to add in our coconut butter. This is because the coconut butter is going to start to solidify as soon as it comes in contact with colder ingredients. So I recommend having your tofu and all of your orange juice, etc., out at room temperature, because as you can see right away, it already got super thick. This is going to help us get that creamy melt in your mouth cheesecake texture that we're looking for without actually having to put it in the freezer. We only need to store this in the fridge. So once everything is blended and smooth and creamy, creamy, we're just going to add it to our springform pan and then use a spatula to smooth it around. You just want it to get as smooth as possible. It isn't going to look perfectly smooth on top because the coconut butter has already started to harden, but we're going to place that in the fridge to set. And then once it's nice and firm, we can remove the springform pan base and then place it on a plate where we're going to decorate it. So the top is still a little rough, but it's totally okay because we're going to be decorating our coconut cheesecake with a little bit more coconut cream, or you can also use a thick coconut yogurt. And then I decided to add some larger toasted coconut flakes as well, just to bring things over the top. But this cheesecake is nice and creamy. It's the closest thing I've ever had to a baked cheesecake texture, and I really enjoy it. So I think you should try it out too. But now moving on, we're going to be making some vegan strawberry shortcakes. Starting with our shortcake base, again, we're going to be using a food processor for this recipe. So to start, we're going to add some almond flour and some oat flour into our food processor, along with some baking powder, a little bit of coconut sugar, and some salt. And then we're just going to blitz everything together in the food processor until we get a nice and uniform mixture of our dry ingredients. And then now we're going to use the food processor to cut in our plant-based butter. I'm using butter here. The original recipe calls for coconut oil, but you can use whatever vegan version of fat that you would like. If you're using butter, I would recommend putting it in the freezer so it's more firm, but the coconut oil you can just put in the fridge and it'll get nice and firm that way. So then we're going to pulse the dough together until it's a nice and sandy mixture. Honestly, I would say I went a little bit too overboard on this. You want it to look a little more crumbly than this. But once your oil or plant-based butter is cut in, off to the side, we're going to whisk together some full-fat coconut milk and a thickened flax egg, along with a touch of vanilla extract. So we're just going to mix that together until it's nice and uniform, and then we are going to return that, or add it, not return it, to the food processor with the rest of the shortcake biscuit type ingredients. So then we're just going to run everything together one more time to form our nice and even uniform dough. And then at this point, we're going to take our dough and transfer it onto a parchment paper lined with a little bit of flour just so it doesn't stick. My dough was a little bit more on the wet side, so I'd use a spatula to get it out, but that's totally okay. You're just going to flour your hands and then press the dough into a rectangle. And then at this point, we're going to put the rectangle into the fridge so the dough can set and the butter and coconut products in the dough can solidify it more to make it easier to roll. So you're going to put it in the fridge for an hour, or you can also do it overnight. Then whenever you're ready and want to roll out your dough, we're going to roll it out more so it's a better shape so we can cut our biscuits. So you're going to use a 3-inch biscuit cutter to cut your shortcakes, and then you can re-roll the dough and make additional shortcakes, yada yada. But once you have all of your shortcakes formed, you're going to place them onto a greased or lined baking sheet. And then here I am brushing each biscuit with a little bit more of the full fat coconut milk, and then adding a sprinkle of turbinado sugar. The coconut milk is going to help the biscuits get nice and golden, and the sugar is going to add a little bit of a crunch. So we're going to pop those babies in the oven, and then in the meantime, we're going to make our macerated strawberries. You're going to wash and slice your strawberries, add them to a bowl with some chopped mint, some lemon zest, some vanilla extract, and some coconut sugar. Then you're just going to use a spoon to stir everything together. The sugar helps to bring out the natural sweetness in the strawberries, and I like how the lemon zest and the mint add a little bit more freshness to this as opposed to traditional just, strawberries and sugar. So we're just going to mix that, set it aside, and let the strawberries get nice and juicy. And we're also going to be making some coconut whipped cream. So Rachel has a recipe for coconut cream in her book, but I found this can of coconut cream that already has all the ingredients you need to make coconut whipped cream. So I just skipped a step, and I thought this was easier than buying a can of coconut cream and seeing if it worked or not. If you've made it before, you know what I'm talking about. But basically with this can, you just add it all to a bowl. I added a touch of vanilla extract too, just because I wanted more vanilla flavor in there. And then you whip it for 2 to 3 minutes. But if you want to make your own coconut whip, so as you can see here, it gets nice and thick, and it's going to serve as a nice dairy whipped cream substitute. The full instructions are on my blog. That was a very long run-on sentence. Hopefully it made sense. But at this point, our shortcakes are done, and they're looking nice and gold and beautiful. Look at that shine. Look at that sparkle. Wow, so yum. So now it is time to assemble our shortcakes. You're going to add one to a plate, add a dollop or 2 of that whipped coconut cream. You could also just buy a dairy-free coconut cream or just whipped topping from the store and use that instead. And then we're gonna top it with our strawberries. I did it more delicately because I was taking pictures of this, but you could just dollop some on top too. And this is what the finished product looks like. You could definitely stack this too. So there's like 2 or 3 layers. It's more of a dramatic presentation, but either way, this recipe is really yummy and delicious, and it's like the perfect spring dessert. All right, guys, and there you have it. Leave a comment below and tell me which one of these recipes you want to make first, as always. And tell me what some of your other favorite spring desserts are. I think for me, like lemon poppy seed just seems really spring to me. I like that as well as once fresh berries start to come out. It's a little bit more in the summer, but like cobblers and crumbles and stuff, those are always really good too. So before we close the video though, I mentioned earlier that the strawberry shortcake recipe was from my friend Rachel's new cookbook, and this cookbook is so beautiful. She shot everything herself. There are 100 different gluten-free, dairy-free, and refined sugar-free recipes in this, and I think 90 of the recipes are vegan, which gives you plenty of stuff to choose from. There's cakes, cheesecakes, cookies, like fruit crumbles. I mean, look at these brownies. Like, everything looks amazing. I've already made a few of the recipes in this cookbook, and there's so many more that I want to make. So if you want to check this out, I'll have this linked in the description below. She allowed me to publish the strawberry shortcake recipe on my blog as well, so there's a link for that in the comments below too. But definitely check this book out. Don't sleep on it. So thank you guys, as always, so much for watching. I always appreciate it when you like this video, leave a comment, or subscribe to my channel. And I hope you guys are having an awesome day. I hope you are enjoying spring, whatever that looks like for you, or you know, if it's not spring, enjoying whatever season that you're in right now. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye.